for me what you see as sort of the core issues that lead to the type of use of force that we are now seeing?
Absolutely. So we've been tracking police violence across the country, including building the most comprehensive database on people killed by police in the country called Mapping Police Violence over the past 6 years. What we have found is that 1,200 people, anywhere between 1,100 and 1,200 people are killed by police each year in this country. And black people are 3 times more likely to be killed by police than white people, as well as more likely to be unarmed. So this is an issue that impacts America in general, but it especially impacts black Americans. Now, in terms of what's going on behind the scenes, we've analyzed the data and matched it up with some of the policies and practices of those police departments that are involved in those incidents. And what we found was that there are a set of policies that can be effective solutions to dramatically reduce police shootings and other use of force. And that some departments are starting to implement these policies, but most have not. So this crisis is a systemic crisis because there are systemic issues that allow police to use violence in the ways that many of us have seen in video after video with no accountability. And we need a systemic solution to prevent them from doing that.
You had a really great thread on Twitter about places where they have put changes into place. I wonder, when you look at those, what has been effective and what is scalable at a national level?
So one of the most important things that we have found is that the use of force standards of the local police department matter a great deal. So nationwide, we looked at the 100 largest police departments in the country, and only 28 of those 100 police departments had policies that banned officers from using chokeholds and other neck restraints like strangleholds. That was the tactic that was used against George Floyd to kill him in Minneapolis. And yet, a small proportion of police departments even ban those tactics. But the ones that do have substantially lower rates of killings by police. Similarly, policies requiring officers to use de-escalation, requiring officers to use every alternative to deadly force whenever possible before using deadly force. It sounds like common sense, but only 42 of the 100 largest cities actually have that policy in place. And only 4 of the 50 states have that in state law. So these are common sense policies that there should be no opposition to implementing, and yet the majority of police departments and states have yet to implement these standards. So that's use of force. We also need to talk about accountability, because when officers violate those standards, they need to be held accountable. And what we know is that nationwide, only 7% of all excessive force complaints result in an officer being disciplined, which means in 93% of these cases where officers are reported for using excessive force, they are not disciplined, they are not held accountable, they remain on the force, racking up these records of misconduct. And as we saw, many of those officers were involved in that incident killing George Floyd. So we have to have systems of accountability and empowered community oversight structures that can effectively investigate and discipline officers for misconduct, as well as a criminal justice system that will effectively prosecute those officers for breaking the law.
According to the Star Tribune, only about 8% of the Minneapolis police force live within the city limits. What impact does that have on the relationship between the police and the community?
Well, so, we know that this isn't a problem that is limited to Minneapolis, that across the country there are many cities that are policed by overwhelmingly white and male police forces that come from outside of the city. That being said, I do want to focus on what the research and the evidence shows are the most effective solutions. And there's not a whole lot of research that requiring officers to be from a particular city will dramatically change the demographics of the police force or the likelihood that officers will use force. Rather, it is those use of force standards, clear requirements, banning officers from using things like chokeholds and strangleholds, banning officers from shooting at moving vehicles, requiring officers to use every alternative to deadly force. Those are the things that can really matter, as well as a strengthened accountability system that can hold them accountable and enforce those standards.
Samuel, thanks so much.